So this is the last question of the 2016 paper 2. Question 16, we have to calculate the length of the side BC to give your answer to 1 decimal place. We have some information up here. If you want to pause the video, then go ahead and have a go at it, but I'm going to continue. So we notice we have a big triangle ABC, but we also have one which is right angled, that's ADE. Now for the moment we're going to just focus on ABC and forget about ADE for a minute. And if you have a look, AD is 4 centimeters and BD is 6. So AB is that total length of 10. And AE is 3, EC is 3 also, so the total is 6. I will explain in a second why we've eliminated DE and we're just focusing on the big shape. And we have to find the length of BC. Now, in trigonometry, the convention is that side A is opposite angle A. And angles are denoted by capitals and sides are lowercase. So A, then small c is the side opposite angle C, and we have B. We then have to calculate side small a, which is BC. So then what we do is we then figure out what information we know and what information we want to find out. So we know this, so we know side C, we know side B, and we're going to put an asterisk on this one because that's what we need to find out. Now, it's trigonometry, so you have to think, would it be the sine rule or the cosine rule? Well, the thing is, you don't know enough information at the minute to use any of them, because if we have a look at both the sine rule and the cosine rule underlined, you need to know at least 3 pieces of information in order to substitute in. If you have a look, you need to know 3 pieces of information, but we only know 2 at the minute. We know 2 sides. So we need to find a third piece of information that we can use. And you're thinking to yourself, what do I do now? But have a look at ADE. Have a look at this. Because this is right angled and we can calculate an angle which can help us in solving this to find A. Let's sketch out ADE, noting that it's right angled. So we can use right angled trigonometry or SOHCAHTOA. So that is A, D, and E. So that is 4 centimeters and 3. And we want to find this angle. This is angle capital A. We'll call this angle capital A. And we know that sine of A equals the opposite over the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is the longest side. The cosine of A equals adjacent over hypotenuse. The adjacent one is simply the one that's not the longest side and is not the one opposite. The opposite one is obvious. The hypotenuse is always the one opposite the right angle. It's always the one opposite your right angle. That's an easy way to remember. Now have a look at the first letters of everything and you'll notice SOHCAHTOA is the way to remember this. So you've got SOHCAHTOA. We have a look at what information we know and what we want to find out. We know the hypotenuse. We know the adjacent. So we know the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So we can use the cosine of A equals the adjacent over the hypotenuse. We plug in, we get the adjacent is 3 and the hypotenuse is 4. The units are the same, so we just put 3 over 4. Now you could evaluate this and find the angle A, but for reasons I will explain in a few minutes, we're not going to evaluate this angle quite yet. So we don't explicitly know angle A, but we do implicitly know angle A. We know it in terms of the cosine of A, so we can also circle in this. So this is actually enough to use. We don't have to evaluate anything. And if we have a look at these, do not try to second guess these. You're given these on the sheet. Make sure you have a look and you don't think to yourself, well, I think I know these, I can do it without the sheet. No, always have a look at the sheet because you can lose so many points by not having a look and simply copying the right stuff down. Of course, you have to tweak to make sure that the letters are the correct ones, but you have to be consistent with the letters you use. Now, the sine rule wouldn't work because you know one angle and you have to calculate a side, but if you have a look at this, the sine rule, the point of it is that you cover up one of these 3 and you keep the other 2, but you can only substitute one angle in and you can't do anything with the second one. So the sine rule wouldn't work in this one because you don't have a second angle to substitute and you're not finding an angle. Now the cosine rule, you know side B and side C, and you know the cosine of A. This is the reason that you don't have to evaluate this because we just plug it in to this one. And it just so happens that the letters they've used are the exact same letters that we need because we have B and we have C and we have cosine of A. We have to find small a. So let's actually copy this down exactly as it appears. The only thing you might have to do is change the letters to suit the question, but in this case, we just copy down. Again, we are checking this. So 2BC cosine of capital A, our value of B is 6, C is 10, minus 2 times 6 times 10, and the cosine of A is 3/4. And if you plug all of this into the scientific calculator, and make sure to respect BODMAS in this one, so you have to make sure that you do 36 plus 100, and the 2 times 6 times 10 times 3/4 all has to respect your BODMAS. And the answer you get is 46. You get 46. So A squared is 46, so A is the square root of 46. This gives us 6.7823 centimetres. Now small a is BC, so it asks us to calculate the length of BC, so let's specify that this actually is BC. And we're almost done, but if you have a look at the question, it asks you to round it to 1 decimal place. Now the 8 is greater than 4, so we round up, so that is 6.8 to 1 decimal place. So BC is 6.8 to 1 decimal place. We can have a look at how the SQA mark this question. The first mark would be for finding this, so that is 1 mark. Your second mark is for substituting into the cosine rule. The third mark is for getting 46. And the final mark is for getting the answer, and rounding it to 1 decimal place would be the fourth mark. You would get nothing if you showed no working. The reason is because the examiner is looking to assess your knowledge of the sine and cosine rules and knowing when to use which one. But if you don't show the steps, then they don't know that you know those, or sorry, you don't have to know those because they're given to you, but you need to know how to use them and when to use which one. And another common mistake that many made was using that right-angled triangle and using Pythagoras' theorem and finding the side. So for example, they found the side DE because then that information in the context of the question is futile. It does nothing because the side DE is not part of this ABC. And many other pupils done something even worse, and many performed Pythagoras on a triangle that isn't right angled. So many drew the wrong triangle, and they used Pythagoras on one that isn't even right angled. So both of those would get you nothing. I will give you one last chance to have a look at this. Of course, you can go back. I hope you found the video useful, and best of luck with the studying.